A few free speech issues have cropped up recently that I haven't actually spoken about because I was away and then I was ill, but we can catch up on them now. I just want to get more eyes on these things because some of them are pretty messed up. We can start with Gab. As you all know, some piece of human waste shot up a synagogue, and Gab came under fire for it for some reason and was getting blamed for the guy's radicalisation. But if you look into the guy's history, he was already pretty far gone before Gab even existed. As a result, the media, corporations, everyone came after Gab in a huge way. Gab ended up being dropped by its host and even dropped by PayPal, and any and all companies were completely disassociating themselves from Gab completely over something that one of its users did. Gab has managed to move to crypto so that it can continue to take payments, and it has also moved to a new host, but that hasn't stopped some people from trying to get the new host to shut Gab down again. And that entire nonsense is just completely hypocritical because there are many, many examples of many mass shooters in the past using other forms of social media for pretty much the exact same thing. Cho, the Virginia Tech shooter, the man with the famous high score, he uploaded loads and loads of videos to YouTube of him posing with guns and stuff, and even one video insinuating that he was going to carry out the attack. Nicholas Cruz, the Stoneman Douglas mass shooter, uploaded a lot of disturbing things to his Instagram before he carried out his attack. Alec Manassian, the incel shooter, uploaded a post to Facebook saying he was going to carry out his attack. The Supreme Gentleman, Elliot Rogers, he uploaded loads of videos to his YouTube channel, including his infamous final video, where it was pretty clear he was about to carry out a mass shooting. And even Randy Stair made posts to his Tumblr before he carried out his own attack, and as far as mass shooters go, Randy Stair's a pretty weird one. So that's Tumblr, Facebook, Instagram and YouTube, all containing posts from mass shooters right before they carried out their attacks, and in some cases announcing that they were going to carry out their attacks. And there are many other examples of mass shooters using social media in this way, and if you look at these media sites, you would be able to find extremist content that relates to the shooter's motives. But what happened to these social media platforms? Absolutely nothing. They didn't have to move hosts, receive calls for them to get shut down, or even get dropped by their payment processors. At most, they got asked to moderate their websites better. So why is Gab different? Why doesn't Gab get the same treatment? Why is Gab held to a completely different standard than its counterparts? It's because Gab is associated with the right. Now, there is an anti-Jewish movement on Gab, but they make up a really, really small minority of its overall users. Unfortunately, whenever you create an alternative social media platform, the first people you're going to get are going to be people from the far right, or the loonies, or the edgy boys that have all been banned from the main platforms. So since they make the majority of your initial audience, your platform then becomes associated automatically with these people. And what a lot of people do is they use the small minority of loonies in a group as a metric for what represents that entire group. And people do this with the right, with Nazis, and people do this with the left, with Antifa. Gab is competition, which is why the main media platforms are going to use every trick in the book to try and get Gab to shut down. But the funny thing about it is, the reasons that the media platforms are using right now to justify getting Gab shut down, they themselves are actually guilty of on many occasions compared to Gab's one single occasion. You don't have to agree with the opinions of the people that run the social media platform, and you don't have to agree with the opinions of the people that you are using the platform along with. But I just find it extremely unfair to try and bring down an entire platform simply based on the opinions or actions of a small minority or even just one single individual that uses that platform. But to call for the shutdown of a platform simply because of the type of content that it hosts or for the actions of one single individual that used that platform, well, Twitter should be getting yeeted completely for Farrakhan alone. Now we move on to the European Court of Human Rights, which I have been a little bit critical of in the past. And in Article 10, Section A, it gives you all the beautiful things that you want to hear about freedom of speech. Free speech will always be free, free expression will always be free, but you know how I'm always saying, whenever you get someone who says, I believe in freedom of speech, but they usually don't believe in freedom of speech, well, Section B of Article 10 is a very big but. What happened was Sabaditch Wolf was given a series of talks on the dangers of radical Islam During these talks, she called Mohammed a paedophile. This saw her arrested and found guilty of denigration of religious beliefs. A blasphemy law. The nation of Austria convicted someone under an age-old archaic blasphemy law, something that goes directly against the very basic concepts of freedom of speech. She managed to take the case all the way to the European Court of Human Rights, and you would think, being the Court of Human Rights, they would uphold her human right to freedom of speech. They upheld her conviction. They upheld it on the grounds that her words were intended to disparage Islam, and so they saw it fit to declare the words she said illegal in order to protect the freedoms of others. At no point did she advocate for or even remotely suggest removing the rights of others. I've no idea how much inference the courts had to throw in there to arrive to that conclusion. But the funny thing about all of this is, the courts thought it was justified to remove the human rights of someone to apparently protect human rights when no human rights were at risk whatsoever by her words. A human rights court just upheld a blasphemy law. I just want you to think about that for a second. A court that is supposed to protect human rights upheld a law that strips away people's human rights. As a human rights court, you should be actively trying to dismantle these laws, not supporting the convictions that take place under them. What are you even for? Another issue is a group of men thought it would be a great idea on bonfire night to burn an effigy of Grenfell Tower. Now that is spicy. That is very, very spicy. I don't even know if I personally would have done that. A lot of people were extremely upset. The public outcry was massive. There was loads and loads of people saying that it was absolutely sickening, it was disgusting, and which is perfectly fine. And that is where it should have ended. But it didn't. 6 people were actually arrested for this under a public order offence. Now, the only thing that I could see resulting from this would be offence. So it seems that these people were arrested for offending people. They hurt people's feelings, so now precious police time and taxpayer money is going to be thrown into convicting 6 people just because they hurt some people's feelings. It's now a crime to offend people in the UK. It is a crime to hurt people's feelings. But there is a way to fix this. Vote UKIP. The Asia Bibi situation. Now, Asia Bibi is a Pakistani Christian who was found guilty of blasphemy back in 2010, and she was sentenced to death. She spent 8 years on death row, but her lawyer actually managed to get her acquitted. And the public response in Pakistan was massive protests of crowds demanding that they be able to kill her, and even showing pictures of her head in a noose. Her lawyer and even the judges who acquitted her have received massive amounts of death threats from everyone around the country. It in fact got so bad that her lawyer actually got removed from the country against his will for his own safety. He didn't want to leave until Asia was out of prison because despite the acquittal, Asia remained in prison for months. However, Asia Bibi was finally released and she's back with her family under heavy armed guard, and in the meantime authorities are trying to find a country that can give her asylum. And they tried Britain, and we rejected her on the grounds that us granting her asylum would cause civil unrest within the UK. Now, why is that? I certainly hope you're not calling a certain demographic of Britain very violent. So violent, in fact, that we, as a majority Christian nation, accurate at time of filming, can't even offer asylum to a persecuted Christian in our own country due to the fact that it might cause a civil unrest that we might be very unable to control. How did we end up here? How did that happen? The Khashoggi situation. Jamal Khashoggi is a journalist who was a critic of the Saudi government. Brave. Khashoggi used to be quite close with the Saudi royal family, but then he fell out of favour with them, and so he went into self-imposed exile in the US for his own safety. While he was there, he wrote a lot of articles very critical of the Saudi family and the Saudi regime. He always feared repercussions because the Saudi royal family don't exactly have the best track record when it comes to journalists that are very critical of them. While in Turkey, he visited the Saudi consulate so that he could get papers confirming that he had in fact divorced his ex-wife so that he could get married to his new Turkish fiancée. They told him that they weren't available and he would have to come back at a later date. And he did come back at a later date, and that is when it hit the fan. He did take precautions before he went in. He got his fiancée to wait outside, and he gave her a mobile that had numbers in it of high-profile people that she could call just in case anything went wrong. And Khashoggi went in and did not come back out. Saudi Arabia completely denied any and all knowledge as to Khashoggi's whereabouts or what happened, and they said themselves that they would launch an internal investigation to figure out what happened because they were deeply concerned about the well-being of Khashoggi. They then released a statement saying that Khashoggi had in fact died at the Saudi consulate in Turkey and that he had walked into the building and started a fight with the security forces. Because when you are very concerned for your life and well-being and you are a 59-year-old man, the first thing that you want to do when you walk into the lion's den is just start swinging punches at several highly trained security personnel. They tried to claim that Khashoggi died accidentally when he was placed in a chokehold by one of the members of the security team, although I have a personal sneaking suspicion that the arms of this member of the security team may possibly have been made of cheese wire. The security forces, in their panic, passed Khashoggi's body over to a local cooperator, or as we like to call them, a fixer, who then chopped up Khashoggi's body with a bone saw and disposed of it. Khashoggi's body has still not been found. There are many other details that proves that these excuses that Saudi Arabia are giving us are complete nonsense. For example, Saudi Arabia flew out several teams of security personnel to the Saudi consulate in Turkey in the days leading up to Khashoggi's visit. And another strange thing, would you believe, all of the CCTV footage throughout the entire building for that entire day, it just vanished, just nobody knows what happened, man, just all the footage just magically got up and walked out the building. Unlike Khashoggi. Turkish authorities say that they actually have audio that Khashoggi secretly recorded on his own phone where you can hear the murder, you can hear the Saudi personnel talking about the murder and even disposing of the body, but they've not released this to the public yet. Saudi Arabia's response was that they knew absolutely nothing about this and it was a rogue operation that was committed by their own agents without their permission, and they are going to conduct a full and thorough investigation into how this happened, and all of the security personnel members that were involved in this will be arrested. In the meantime, I've got a bridge to sell you. The Saudi royal family then met with Khashoggi's son, denying any involvement, saying how sorry they were, and they're going to do their hardest to bring these horrible people to justice. And Khashoggi's son actually had to shake their hand when he knows fine well it was them. I mean, look at his face. Look at his face, man. So that's us pretty much caught up on everything that I missed. Free speech in the UK is pretty bad right now, but we don't have it as bad as some other places, at least we don't have the government assassinating journalists, and at least we don't actually have protesters demanding for the deaths of people that they disagree with.
Right, we want to destroy Tommy Robinson. Go and tell him that in there. You want to destroy him? Destroy him. I hope he dies. Right? I hope he dies.
182 ain't bad.
It's Count Dankula on YouTube. Everybody should subscribe.